So PPIE very much for me is actively involving patients, carers, members of the public, whoever is relevant to your piece of work, rather than just including them in research as research participants. We really want to see research being done with or by these people rather than for or about or to. And there's lots of definitions out there about how PPIE should be defined. But for me, it's being able to see a research partnership between you as the researcher and the people that are going to benefit from this piece of research that you want to undertake. It needs to be really clear what they mean by their involvement, and it it can be that you'll have a separate section that's specifically about your PPIE. But what I'd want to see is, how did this involvement exist before the application, as part of the application? How did it feed into the project, become part of that project? How will it coexist during the life cycle of that project? And what will happen at the end of the project? What happens to that network that you've built up, or that involvement that you've got going? And another really important aspect for me is clarity over funding. Quite often, funding for properly costed PPIE involvement gets overlooked, and there'll be a token amount included that's not broken down. So there'll just be a line item that says PPIE, but it won't be how that's broken down into what is that paying for? Is it paying for time? Is it paying for meetings? Is it paying for subsistence? So those points are really important. And I know from my experience, what I'll quite often do is go to the lay summary first of an application, and get a feeling for the project. So although I'm coming in from a methodological point of view, a statistical point of view, quite often what I will be looking for is, can you explain to me what this is in plain English? And that is where you're going to gain from having that input from PPIE, that clarity of involvement. And then another important aspect to include is how you'll demonstrate that throughout the life cycle of the project. So, for example, are you going to use any of the tools that are available? So Pirit and things like that that are available to capture that engagement would be really useful. I would say it's real immersion of the PPIE throughout the research plan. So although I said previously you can have a little bit that specifically describes, for me, if it's woven throughout, so it becomes a natural part of the project, I would say that's really demonstrating the understanding the power of PPIE. I also like to see novel methods for including PPIE into the project, and there's lots of different ideas out there about there. So it may not just be sitting on advisory committees or reviewing your documentation. It may actually be generating part of your research. Professor Laura Gray over in Leicester University has done some really interesting PPIE work around statistical methodology. And for me, if you can get people involved in something as complex and as off-putting as statistical methodology, then you can involve them in much easier parts of your project. So I would really like to see it really woven in, and additionally, good dissemination plans. So it's not all about that ref input that you're going to get, those journal papers. How are you going to disseminate this research back to the individuals who've hopefully helped you design it, helped you generate it, and those people that are really going to benefit from the research? So I would want to see some really good novel dissemination plans as well that would come from that involvement. I think what you've said has just covered it, really. It's really about that. Has this been generated and born out of some previous work? Is it something that you've generated? And it's not a bad thing to have an idea yourself and then bring the PPIE on board, but it's how that's been done in the run up to the application and embedded in that application. So I would be looking for real engagement, named people, actively relevant interest throughout. And for me, the sustainability of what you're proposing to develop is really important. I've seen applications where network development has been proposed for PPIE, whether it's been in a rarer disease area or a less research clinical area. And there's been suggestion of developing a network of PPIE, which would be fantastic and kind of set things up for future research as well. But then what may be lacking is how they will sustain that beyond the project. These things take input, they take time. So if you as a researcher are kind of moving on or using this as a stepping stone to the next part of your research career, what will happen to that network and how will that be sustained? It will cost money, it will cost resource, it will cost time. So understanding that is really important. So I would be seeing, if you like, a checkbox of that before, during, after dissemination, and that real commitment from your PPIE. Make sure you take this opportunity to train and develop yourself within PPIE. It may not be something that you're expert at, but the whole idea of a fellowship is to take those opportunities to train, develop yourself, learn about the opportunities that can exist within PPIE, but also make sure it's relevant to you and your project. So it may seem a little bit, we're asking for lots of things, we're asking for you to involve PPIE, and it may not be your comfort area, but take it as an opportunity to learn and develop through the application. I've seen applications where it's fine to admit that it may not be your strength and it may not be what you're good at, but taking that opportunity to learn from this and find a mentor who can help you to include that strongly in your application, and that would be a benefit.